Coming up this week on the St. Paul Neighborhood Network Forum, I am sitting down with my friend, Miss Shannan Paul. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Joining me today is my friend, Miss Shannan Paul, here in the Kwame McDonald studio. Girlfriend.
Hello.
Hi.
It's good to see you in person and actually be sitting down, because we're normally seeing each other at an event in passing and you have enough time to go, how's the kid? How's your kid? I love you. Here's a hug. We're going to get together. And then it's been, what, 2 years and we still haven't managed to get together. 2,
3, 4, 5,000 galas later.
Exactly.
And I'm like, hey, come chat with us.
Yes, thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so Renaissance woman.
Thank you.
Because we do all the things. We both like to coin the term unicorn.
Yes.
But this isn't about we, this is about you. So, comedian.
If you go to my LinkedIn page, I just updated it. So let me know what you think of this. It says multi-dimensional event leader. Doesn't that sound good?
Ooh.
See, because you get to pick. I wrote it. Multi-dimensional event leader, but that really means like the 5 unicorn offerings we talk about that I mostly do is I'm a comedian,
yes.
I'm a corporate speaker,
yes.
I'm a voice actor, I'm an event MC, and I'm a benefit auctioneer. And I like to mention the benefit auctioneer because there's only 5 black women in the country who are currently certified benefit auctioneers.
And you are one of those 5?
Yes, and so
really?
That's a big deal. And I learned that from a new friend of mine, a good friend of mine. Her name's TK, and she lives in Austin, Texas. She goes, you know, there's only like a handful of us that have done this. So that's very cool. And a big part of what I get to do is help community organizations, which is why I got that license in the first place, is to just be more accomplished at how I can be a good community fundraising partner for people. So I'm glad I get to do it. It's been very cool.
So what does it mean to be a benefit auctioneer versus an auctioneer at a gala?
So I mean, that's usually what it is that the training that you can get or the licensing means that you can be an auctioneer, at least the way it works in Minnesota. You can do a bunch of events. So I could technically, I guess, do houses and cars, but that's not my specialty. But being a benefit auctioneer, I just tapped into the National Auctioneers Association and got some additional training and really tapped into how can you work with an organization to really, similar to what we do as a event MC, is how can we help them support their event in a way that maximizes the engagement so that their audience knows how to get there and what they're there to do and how they can best support the organization that they're there to attend and find out more about. So that part's been really cool.
Extraordinary. It's gala season.
Yes.
It's a busy season for you, but what's not a busy season? This is just heightened. Do you selectively pick the galas and organizations you work with, or do you just, because you're benefit auctioneer, also just really like supporting organizations in general?
I think it's kind of a blend. I have, I believe, done a pretty good job of just manifesting what it is that I mostly support. Like people know that I really support women-led organizations and things that support children and families and really working on what we can do for our homeless and unhoused community members and working on financial literacy. So the kind of things that I do, which is finding ways that support families that have kids with disabilities or supporting families that are trying to find economic stability and financial literacy and providing that stable base, which is what you get when you have home ownership. That stable base is what you get when you have, financial literacy or support when you need it. That's really important to me because a lot of those things are, I've gone through phases when I was younger where we went through housing instability and knowing how difficult it is. Or, since I am also a proud #autism mom, like knowing what it is when you're in the weeds and you're trying to figure out what's best for your kid that has special needs, but also trying to maintain your balance as a fully formed human being.
Most days.
Right. And some days it works and some days it doesn't. But I'm pretty grateful that I've showcased what it is, and so the organizations have pretty much found me. And we've both been in this general bucket of really helping community organizations for a really long time. And I'm sure you have gone through that as well, where somebody sees you at one and they get your vibe and they know, no, this is important to her.
Right.
And she's authentic about this. And that's where I've been very fortunate, where people are like, oh, no, I saw you at the Habitat for Humanity event, so we understand that you really want to work on this. And they've heard the story and they know what I'm about. And that's how it is. Cause,
I mean, if you don't know how to find Shannan, you'll see her with her awesome hair. We were just talking about naming her.
Yes, and so I didn't come up with the name, so hopefully so now, since it's been blue for a while now, I think I'm gonna call her Azules. Azul, yeah, Azul. You kind of think.
We can open it up to the masses. You could do a poll.
I should do that. I'll put it on my socials.
Yes.
Like, what do you think?
What should we name her?
Azules sounds like a lovely blue goddess to me.
Yes, I think so too. But you know what? Blue is significant because it shows a lot of loyalty and compassion, and it's calming, yet you have a vibrant one. And so if you're out, folks, and you see Shannan,
you can go, we have a name suggestion, you can do that.
You can't help but just be drawn to you. So
thank you.
You are a comedian. Why choose comedy? How did you get into it?
Good question, because it's been a while. I'm writing a book.
Author, let's add that.
It was soon to be author, but I'm writing a book, and it talks about my friend Michael Libby, who I used to work with before I was a comedian, back when we both worked at a bank. Not as tellers, but we worked in like the marketing and different departments there. And we used to go to one of the comedy clubs here in the Twin Cities, Acme Comedy Company, all the time just to watch.
Sure.
And go to the open mics, go to the other shows that they had. And people had told me since I was young, hey, you're funny, you should do X. And I would always kind of yada yada them away and say no. And then I try not to use the word just very often in my personal lexicon, because I think it minimizes things, and I had to really work on my imposter syndrome and self-esteem. So one of the words I stopped using was just.
Good.
I'm not just anything. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not just a. And that was a huge thing for me. And so I'd go, I'm just telling stories, or I just tell stories to my friends, or I just do that to make my family laugh. And so I would just rebuff when other people would make that suggestion. And so one night, we must be at least 20 years ago, Michael and I were at Acme Comedy Company, and we saw somebody, and he goes, you're really funny, why don't you do that? And I said, I just tell stories to my friends. And he's the one that said it at just the right time in a way that I could receive it. And he goes, what do you think they're doing? Just make your stories jokes. And it just resonated, and I went, okay. And I was in college at Metro State at the time, and I happened to be in a comedy writing class. And so instead of, and Susan Nielsen's class, I speak for her class every time she asks me to, because she's an amazing professor. And instead of writing a humorous one act or a short story and the things I normally would do, I wrote a stand-up comedy set, and it needed to be, to get credit, it had to be 4 minutes. So I wrote a 4-minute set, and I told it in class, and I didn't die.
Were they dying laughing?
They laughed, but I'm like, okay. And I was the only one that did that.
You did it, though.
I did it, and I was like, okay. And so I rewrote it, because to do a set at Acme, when you first start, it's 3 minutes. So I rewrote it to be 3 minutes, and I went to Acme, and I didn't die. And then that turned into go back there every week that I could for years and years and years. And I made some friends that I'm still friends with. And really just figuring out and reinventing yourself and going, what kind of voice do you have? What do you do? Because, there's some people that I met way back then that are still in the game, and there's a lot of people that aren't.
It's got to be hard.
Yeah, and so I'm just really fortunate that I was able to not only stay a performer, but then I figured out ways to find the adjacencies, which is really, if you look at all of the primary things that I do, it's, well, I'm a comedian first, but then I ended up being a corporate speaker because somebody saw some of the material I was doing and saying, that'd be a really good keynote or a good motivational speech. And so I figured out how to broaden it into that. And the event MC, there's lots of event MCs that you can hire, but you hire me because I can be funny and serious and like do this turn. So that's how it turned into, and the same thing as a benefit auctioneer. So it's really just finding adjacencies and other things that are still based on my skill set.
It works for
that
you.
all come back. So it's still a matter of, I go places and I use words, and I hopefully use words to impact people that are around me, and that's what I get to do. And I've been very fortunate because at first it was like, okay, like saying I'm a full-time performer, that wasn't something if you had asked me 20 years ago that I really thought could be a thing.
So I want to ask about the imposter syndrome that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Girl, that's real talk.
Right,
and
right.
anyone that has done anything on their own or really aiming to be something, but especially entrepreneurs, feel it.
I think especially,
how does that work
I
with
think
you?
we're getting better about it, but especially female entrepreneurs.
Yes.
I think that a lot of us are still just hardwired to want stability. And so staying in this entrepreneurial space and looking for the right options is really difficult. And I had to, you know, I don't want to say fake it, but I had to figure out ways to, I had somebody call it either scaffolding or ladder myself down. So I couldn't go, you are enough and you deserve to be here right away. But I could go, no, you really are funny. You know, and I could start with a step and I say, or you're funny today. You know, maybe it was just a little bite and then I would add another rung to the ladder and another rung to the ladder until I got to the, you are funny and people like you and you deserve to be in this space.
And get paid for it.
And get paid for it.
Yes.
And, you know, and there was some ways that I had to trick myself into going, no, you do deserve to hold your rate, and just because you love it doesn't mean that you have to do it for free.
If you're joining me today, I am sitting down with my dear friend, Miss Shannan Paul, and we are chatting about comedy. You're writing a book, Real Talk with Imposter Syndrome, all the work that you do, and parenting. We're going to get into that in just a minute. Where do you draw your inspiration when it comes to creating content? And you also mentioned finally in leveraging your advice from advisors and your mentors. You have a support group, but where do you draw your inspiration for the work you do?
Interesting. I mean, if you ask me about what do I find funny.
Okay. What do you find funny?
That's like the way that I write my bits. Like there was a few years ago that I changed my personal mission statement to, I use my art to care for my son and make the lives of other people better. And that influences all of the things that I do. So when I'm writing a bit, it's usually, I call it, I punch at the mirror first. So I'm gonna poke at me first.
Okay.
And then by me poking at me, then other people might go, oh wait, I've been in that.
That's
I've made that dumb thing too.
relatable.
I've made that mistake, or I'm not the only one, or that reminds me of my cousin. And so it's usually, that's kind of where I start.
Which kind of makes sense when you say comedy through the chaos.
Right. My life is chaotic, but everybody's is.
Be grumpy.
Right.
And I recently started switching my mindset around, oh man, this one thing happens today and I could be totally grumpy, or I could just literally laugh and my mood changes.
Right.
So and you might as well just talk about it.
And it's really interesting where you do have to be intentional with that mind shift. And I don't want anybody who's watching to think that we are dipping into positive toxicity.
Right.
Like I understand that there's just saying it's always going to be okay and doing all that stuff. I know that if you are in the midst, I'll just say it, in the midst of trials and adversity, you don't always want somebody just coming up and go, just hold on a little bit longer, it'll be okay. I've been in those moments where I'm like, yeah, it does work to go turn on my Sounds of Blackness albums and be like, yeah, I know it's gonna be okay, hold on, your day's coming. But some days you don't want to hear that.
But today doesn't feel good.
Right, but there have been days in the, moments like where maybe I had a really hard morning and I've caught myself and go, all right, are you going to say that hard morning is going to influence your whole day, or are you going to isolate that activity and go, this was hard? It does not mean the whole day has to be hard. It doesn't mean the whole hour has to be hard. You can go acknowledge, feel all the feels, go through the whole pinwheel of emotions about whatever happened in that moment. And I encourage people to do that, because if not, if you just bottle and keep kicking it down the road, then as my therapist puts it, then you let a rock turn into a wall.
Oh, we don't need that.
Yeah, so you got to turn that rock as much as you can at the time, because sometimes you can't.
You just drew a box. I don't know if you realize what you're doing, because I talk with my hands a lot. But you just drew this box, and for a moment I kind of thought you were saying, well, at least I pictured it, contain the emotions, let yourself feel.
Feel all of them.
But also give it a home. And then.
And a name sometimes.
Zip it or just.
Well, sometimes you don't have to close it in, but you're allowed to, kind of like if you, in your house, if you have a series of pipes, you can have shut-off valves.
Yes.
So sometimes this activity does not deserve to throw everything else away.
It's not going to leak into the other rooms.
Exactly. You can go,
it.
no, this, yeah, this exploded, but it doesn't have to. You can shut off the doors and go, this is that, and how can I deal with it? And sometimes it's actually handling it, naming it, allowing yourself to grieve whatever that is, instead of allowing more pressure to build up. So then it knocks out all those those walls.
We're talking mental health now, apparently.
Well, that's
But I also
important
want to talk about home ownership. And you are so funny with your Instagram, your videos that you share, probably with your jokes. But one day you're out there shoveling the snow off of the roof. One day you're raking things. And then you and your son, you go and you're like, hey, come throw the leaves up.
And he's like, you are so corny. He looks at me like,
funny. I can see when he judges you, but it's with love. So talk about, and then you talk about this on the radio show that you do, home ownership, real estate, finance.
Right.
Give us a little glimpse about what that experience has been like for you.
It's, and I'm doing more of it now, and I'm really always interested in knowing things, and then knowing things in a way and learning things and encouraging other people to know stuff, because there's always a few things in our life that we're like, oh, that's really hard, or I don't need it, or I'm so focused on this other thing. Instead of being inherently curious about things, and curious in a safe way. I'm not saying that you should go walk in dark alleys and be, I wonder what's down here. I'm not saying that. But I am saying just because something wasn't modeled for you doesn't mean that you don't deserve to know.
Absolutely.
And so maybe home ownership or financial literacy or some of these things weren't modeled for you.
Sure.
And so it puts you in a situation where you're going, I don't know how to take the next step. And just reminding people that just like any of those rich people and celebrities you see on TV, most of them have a team that helps them. And you deserve a team. And so you asking a question to somebody and having people who are advisors in your life, you deserve that. And you don't have to know everything because you're certain things that you're really good at, there's certain things I'm really good at. And so there's sometimes I'm like, no, I need a person to go and ask because I have this legal question. I have this home ownership question. I need to Google a YouTube video and decide. And anything, any of my DIY projects, I mean, I'm a firstborn of 3 girls, kind of thing. So, I mean, I'm kind of used to fixing things. I'm like, there's certain things though, I don't mess with plumbing.
Okay.
I don't mess with electricity.
Okay.
And I don't now do anything that requires me to get on taller than a 6-foot ladder.
Listen, you just installed that thing in your doorway so it doesn't slam shut.
But that's easy because it's like things are a lot easier than you think. And so Anahita's talking about how when I have a storm door and it's like it'll slam. So the way those work, again, because I looked it up, so you have that thing. You can tighten it usually and it'll make it so that it doesn't slam shut. After a while, the valves just go. Okay. And it's like, to me, I look up and I go, how much can I break this worse? And if I can't break it worse, then I try to fix it. Like, I bought new windows for my house. I did not put in the windows. I'm not insane. Right. But I did, my steps on one side, these concrete steps, I asked how much it was going to cost to replace them. And they needed to demolish them and do a bunch of stuff. And it was going to cost me at least $7,000.
No.
And I said, you know what?
Necessary.
I looked it up. I went to Home Depot. I bought some concrete. And some putty and some stain and some things like that. And I bought an angle grinder and some more protective equipment. Everybody, get your protective equipment. I have a mini chainsaw. I have chainsaw pants. Just like, you need to get your stuff. I have goggles. That's why you see me, I got all this stuff.
You are prepared. It inspires me.
So you can't go out there and ask to get a rock chip in your eye. But what I figured is, okay, this will cost me time, and if you grabbed all the stuff, $200. And if I do it poorly, then I still have to pay the $7,000, but I didn't hurt my house.
Yes.
I didn't do it anything worse. If I'm out there, if I try to replace this gasket on my storm door, I'm not ruining the integrity of my house. No. So those kind of projects I'm all for, and I don't clean my gutters anymore because that that goes beyond my, because I've done a couple of those projects where I got into them and I'm like, you could have gotten hurt.
Will say
you were on too high of a ladder. If you had fallen, who would have saved you? You would have ended up with 2 broken ankles. So that's how I decide what I'm not going to do anymore.
And that may have shifted in the last year or so of watching just your videos, because you're not getting up there anymore.
Yeah, because I had one where I put up like his swing, and that was me on my 20-foot ladder, and I did it without somebody watching me. Like now at least I have my sister come over or something like that.
Okay.
I was like, if the wind kicked up and you came off this ladder, you would have ended up in the emergency room, and then he's going to watch your son. So don't do stuff that's going to, actually hurt yourself. Or that's why even if I'm using my gator, which is really just aggressive scissors, it's a chainsaw, but it's not. But it's cool. It's one of my coolest things that I own.
Oh, look at that. You're geeking out about it.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. When I got it, I was like, oh, that thing. I'm pruning everything. But when I'm doing it, it does make me be more intentional. Like today, over the weekend, I put in some more safety lights on the outside of the house. But they're solar lights, so I didn't have to touch the electricity. I just had to get up there and screw them in and plug them in. But I made sure that my sister came over to watch me on the ladder this time instead of me doing it on my own.
Otherwise, it's just your son inside going, that
not knowing, he doesn't know, he wouldn't be able to go.
Speaking of your son, and I want to make sure we get to this.
Yes.
This is Autism Awareness Month. And
Autism Awareness / Autism Acceptance, depending on what hashtag you use.
I am so happy to see so much going around on social media talking about it. And you are an Autism Awareness and Acceptance advocate and a mom.
Yeah.
Talk about what people need to know and how they can support.
One of the most wonderful things of where we've gotten to in our journey around autism spectrum disorder, but also neurodiversity in general, is allowing people who are in a position to advocate for themselves to really find their voice and people to listen. I believe that's really wonderful. I think that in general, our community is doing a lot better job of understanding that it's a spectrum for a reason, it's neurodiverse for a reason, and that although there are some commonalities that may occur in our neurodiverse population, everybody's an individual human being.
And so it's so different.
Right, and so honoring that, I think, is very important for people. So my journey with my kiddo is a lot different than some of my counterparts, but there are resources that we can share, and there are ways that we can get people into the support that they need sooner than it happened before. And one of the things I like about it most is that the label is slowly over time getting less stigmatized, like so many of our labels. And so similar to the conversation we're having about mental health and all of these overlaps, if you need a label that will provide you with supports that you need to thrive, but we stigmatize that, of course it's going to affect your mental health.
Of course.
Where you feel like, I don't fit in, I feel othered, I have all these issues.
Right, and the outcome of that too.
Yeah, exactly. So instead, if we can go, no, you are a wonderful unicorn, and this is just the way that you get to showcase how sparkly you are better, that I think is great. And I really like to, talk to families and go, it seems really isolating, but you don't have to be alone, and then just share some of the information that I got when I was, when I was starting the journey with my kiddo. Is just having some people go, we understand that it's hard, you're gonna be okay. And you don't always feel like you're gonna be okay. And so having somebody that can tell you, you're gonna be okay. And today's a Tuesday, and you are doing your best to be a wonderful caretaker and take care of your family, and you're important too. And that's really important to me, is to tell other people, you're gonna be okay.
Because I have to tell myself that. Shannon's gonna make me cry, and that's
make myself cry.
That's never happened before.
But it's true, where there's lots of moments where, again, back to saying when you're in the midst, that you're like, what are we gonna do? And nobody gets us, and it's really hard. And it does make a difference to have somebody tell you, I understand it's hard.
Yeah.
And you're not weak, or there's nothing wrong with you by acknowledging that it's hard.
Right.
And
It's
I think that helps.
Human thing.
That helps. One of the best.
He seems like such a great guy too. Your
He's
kiddo.
a good kiddo. He's a good
16,
kiddo.
well,
There's
led
some
with
days he's a lot of work, you know, kind of thing.
mama.
But he's 16, and so there's some days that I'm like, is this the autism or is this the 16-year-old? And some days it's both. So it's just okay, I'm just gonna go over here. And then you figure out what pinwheel of emotion this is, because it came out angry, but you're really hungry,
right.
or you didn't eat right, or you're tired, or maybe you need you need more fiber in your diet.
We are all him, he is all us.
Right. And so you just have to figure out how to help him articulate what it is. And I'm like, all right. And so he's a good kiddo. I'm very fortunate to have him.
We had so much more time on
Absolutely.
the show. But where can folks find you, whether you have something coming up, contact info, all the Shannan things?
The best place to go is to go to missshannan.com. So that's Miss Shannan with an A.com. So lots of S's, lots of A's, lots of N's. That's how you can contact me. I'm Miss Shannan on everything. So again, it's not Ms., it's Miss.
Yes.
I know I'm a divorced lady, but I stayed Miss the whole time.
For a reason.
Exactly. So if you look up Miss Shannan on the social medias and all those things, just look for Black Lady with Blue Hair. You'll know you have the right one.
Miss Azul up there
Azul.
shining her bright crown. When is the next push-up video? Because you and your son do push-ups, and it's mostly you, which is so funny.
Yeah,
but
and him going, you do that. That's cool. So the next push-up video, there'll be another one this week. I mean, if he's going to bug me anyway about having more pizza, he can at least do more push-ups and get off his phone, which is really what it is. It's an excuse like anybody who has teenagers, getting them to put their phone down.
Queen.
That's a challenge.
Hold up on that. That is a whole thing for all of us. It's real talk. You are doing it. You're an extraordinary supporter of your community. I love your vibe. I love your energy. I love being your friend.
And I love you.
And I admire you as a mentor, sister, and mother.
And I am so glad that we are in one another's circle. So it's always good to see you.
We're going to laugh and cry any second now. So without further ado, we're going to wrap up this conversation. Thank you for tuning in to SPNN Forum. We will see you next time.